Hello, everyone, and welcome to Canadians with Disabilities and Their Allies. My name is Brent Frain. I'm the host. Today, we have a new series that we are, I'm proud to announce. It's called Disability for Dummies, and it's part one. But I've got a special announcement also to make before we commence on the new series here. We have a special guest on Thursday, January the 18th, and that's at 11 o'clock a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 2 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it's Biff Naked. She is joining us on the show. I'm such a thrill to have her come on the show. And here's a little sneak peek for everybody.
It might not be coming across very well on the, yeah. I can't really hear it, Brent, but that's okay because I think YouTube would strike us anyway, potentially. Have to get our lighters out.
Well, that's Biff Naked, and she's going to be joining us on Thursday, January the 18th. It's going to be awesome having Biff join us on the show. Biff's going to be talking about poverty on the welfare food challenge that she participated in years ago. And the issue on poverty, it affects anybody at any time, and it has and it always will until the policies change across our beautiful country. And it can be done, but the welfare food challenge, what happened there was it wasn't enough for people to basically participate in the program, so Biff had to scrap it. I'm not going to give too much away. That's just a little teaser of what's going to be coming up on that. And just as a program announcement here, our new series that we're launching is about Disability for Dummies, Part One. And Neil is the editor producer. There's just some other things that are going on at his household right now. So I'm just going to carry on. And I guess Neil will just kind of fill in the blanks here as we go on. He's got the list there. So in the meantime of kind of where things are going to be going from on those pointers, like for our part one, is on factual stuff that's happening, how it affects people's lives, people with disabilities in each province across Canada. And these are all factual things that people go through on a day-to-day basis. And again, it's all policy driven. We need to get rid of, we need to erect poverty. We need to eliminate poverty completely. Nobody should be living in legislated poverty in Canada. We live in a wealthy nation. Should we take care of our citizens? Absolutely, we should. Yeah. So I'm gonna put the mic over to. I'm going to start with Dan first, and just kind of a little debrief on what's kind of happening in your community, and then I'll go over to Joseph and over to Ellen. Cassandra's going to be joining us actually on the show too, and probably a little bit later. So here we go. I'm going to pass the mic over to you, Dan.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name's Dan. For those of you who don't know me, I'm from here in Toronto. I was formerly homeless, worked at Toronto City Council for 5 years. I think with regards to everything going on in the world today, it's like we were briefly discussing earlier on today. I think we need everybody to just drop their singular narratives and get working together, right? This is a perfect example of it here right now. We have your second producer, Neil, there that's off taking care of an emergency right now. and we're all pulling together to get the information out to the people that matters. So just encourage everybody to continue to watch and hear. Sure, it gets a little goofy sometimes, and we let a little bit of stuff out sometimes that maybe sometimes shouldn't be said. But when push comes to shove, all we all really want is what's best for those in the disability community. I will say to people, just as a brief note, so I'll let on in my introduction here. I've told some of you I was in contact with, I'm not going to dime him out, but a party leader this week, or sorry, last week. And there was great discussions that were to be had. And I think going forward, there is, there's that core group of people, whether it's provincially or federally, that need to see this done. I think we all here have come to the realization that CDB, STIRB, disability emergency, whatever, the universal basic income, all of this is coming down the pipeline of the federal election next year. So we got to keep chugging forward, listen to all ideas involved, and listen to the different aspects. I'm the on the grounds guy. Somebody such as Joseph, Alan, and a couple of others in the group, MJ and such, they're the numbers people. So listen to the diversified opinions, but they're opinions that when combined will come up with the realistic solutions we need to solve our problems.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Dan. I love hearing other people's viewpoints and other opinions. It's awesome because that's how we learn. We learn from each other on different opinions. And one thing I've come to understand in life is it's not always to always agree to everybody on every aspect. It's learning from every little bit of information from everybody and coming to a common ground of getting along with everybody in general, of just saying, hey, like this is a narrative that we need to put together and unify together and get the message out and actually make change happen. Because if it's always the same, the single line going forward, like nothing's going to happen. We have to basically take the horns here and just keep on hammering forward. And that's how things are going to change. And bringing people on the show and also as a panel and talking about lived experience stories and like Disability for Dummies. This is going to be a good series because, like I said at the beginning of the show, Dan, it's all factual stuff. And we compiled, Neil and I compiled a whole list together, and I got Sonia involved with it too. And we said, like, hey, like, what are some of these topics? And then I gave it to Neil, and he re-edited it down again and put it out there. No, another re-edit again. And we went through and really narrowed it right down. There's other topics too that we can throw in too as time goes on. But we felt the most important topics are on there. There is a part in there, and I'm not sure what part of the list it is because Neil's got the list in front of him. There is a part about shelter rates now that can actually be changed for Ontario. And so that's kind of like a topic, but also it can actually be, for Ontario or any other province that has the shelter rate. Now, everybody knows when I talk about that, it needs to be gone. I know Cassandra is all over it too, right? It's a policy-driven situation. And again, policies hurt people when they're not actually modernized to reflect the person's needs. People have the right to housing.
Did anybody notice that Quebec was actually taking the Netherlands seriously when they had realized that the Netherlands had only almost completely eliminated poverty already by using this support housing first and then deal with someone's illnesses rather than try and go, I'm going to put this person in 5 different support groups and then we'll look at their housing situation. And the Netherlands have done the other thing that we're not doing or the other provinces aren't doing, which is like, let's just get this guy in a house. It may not be the best house. Is he going to have stainless steel appliances in his kitchen? Probably not.
Right.
But is he going to have a bed from the get-go? Is he going to be able to open an account? Is he going to be able to pay rent and get whatever supports? And they're dealing with the put a roof over your head first rather than lead someone down a path that might put a roof over their head. And
save
unfortunately, Alan, the problem with it is, Alan, is that these higher ups decide that no, it's better if we have a government contract that states that we give them brand new appliances, so we don't have any, uh, you know, accountability later that we gave them a substandard stove because
Yeah.
we wanted to save a few dollars, so they had a fire, and all of a sudden now the house is going to be gone. Blah blah blah. Oh, our insurance companies would rather us buy brand new, and we're going to create jobs. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the program together for housing, but we're going to buy the housing, and then 3 years later we're going to announce all these little things for appliances and this deal and this deal and this deal, and then all of a sudden then we're going to tender this process, and then and eventually it's like 5 fucking years later the person gets a house because they have to take it in steps because somebody down the line said you're going to be accountable.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
that's it. But I mean, it's interesting that Montreal in this report uh, has obviously gone over to the Netherlands and gone, oh my goodness, we're getting the horse and the buggy completely reversed here.
Well,
They've
well,
already
well,
solved
yeah, but
it.
Canada
And
can lead the way, though. I mean, they need to show that they can actually lead the way and saying, as an example, saying this is what we're going to do for our citizens. We're going to be the number one of the G7. We're gonna really gonna show the world that that this can be done. And yeah, I mean, but
I'm
right
having
now, Canada's
having so
really
much
not.
fun, Brent.
Yeah.
This is so much
one
fun.
one of the things that
Oh,
makes
I
me
know.
realize is one of the things I
Look, the
realize
only
is
thing that Canada's been able to accomplish is spelling NIMDY.
Hmm.
the one
Yeah.
thing I noticed was that it doesn't matter whether it's housing or environmental or what energy. The only way to get the current government in power, especially federally, is to do anything, is to embarrass the shit out of them
Hmm.
on the public's face. Then the Trudeaus go, wait a minute, we're doing that next month. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? As soon as they're embarrassed on the public, as soon as they're the ones with egg on their face at a G7 meeting or whatever it may be, until that happens, they
Yeah.
won't do squat. They'll follow the line, they'll kick the can, whatever the cliche is.
Yeah.
But as soon as like the Netherlands or Germany or whatever embarrasses Canada, that's when you see action.
Wow.
Well, see, if I can just touch on it for 2 seconds there, it was actually Finland that was here in Toronto, just from my work experience and working there. Here in Toronto, it was actually Finland they tried to model their programs after. So they went and studied it all, right?
Hmm.
And I think it was Brent earlier, it was one of you three, but it was one of you that said that it's just get the housing over their head type deal, like get something in place.
That was me. That
Yeah.
was it was in it was
And I can attest to you straight up from being a guy that was homeless for 19 years that is actually the key. That is the start, the beginning point. Because if you don't put a roof over somebody's head, they have
Yep.
nowhere to feel comfortable to integrate themselves into this
Yep.
community, whether it be with working people, whether it be with friends, whether it be with family, right? And
Yep.
until you get that settled on there. But the one point that I made to the Toronto City Council about it, and it was point blank and still stands to this day, 10 years later, is that why don't we have the folks with the lived experience at the table? For example, housing and homeless issues, you're going to put me at the table. When it comes to basic income, you're not going to put me at the table. You're going to put fucking Joseph there or somebody else at the table, right? Use the lived experience that we have here and
Yep.
implement it and integrate programs and wraparound services that work for the folks in fucking Canada.
Absolutely.
I actually I
bang
made
on
the
that.
mistake. Dan, you're right. It was in
Thanks,
Finland. It was Helsinki that had basically. I mean, they were showing film footage of the town of the city of Helsinki, and there was like no tent cities, nothing. It was like there were people in parks playing like chess or whatever, but there were no tent cities at all in Finland. And I was getting Finland mixed up with the Netherlands, so that's my bad. But
I'm going to
it was
pass that.
Quebec.
Ellen, I'm going to pass the mic over to
Go.
Neil. We're gonna now kind of progress with our Disability for Dummies series, part one.
Brent, Neil's on the phone, so you might want to go to Joseph for a little comment
okay.
on the
Oh,
situation
sure.
here.
Yeah. Okay. Joseph. Yeah. Thanks, Dan. Joseph. So we're going to run down some numbers here.
What's up?
And guy.
What numbers would you like to run down?
Well, maybe kind of like a little teaser part of the.
Okay, how's this for Disability for Dummies? Okay, Disability for Dummies states that there is 4 million people in Canada that or are approaching disability status. Okay, this is people that are either going to age normally, they're going to grow arthritis, they're going to have, pneumonia, they're going to have some kind of ailment that's going to take them out of the workforce. Okay,
Yep.
You have a young population that is not necessarily trained for the trades, so we as a society in Canada had a very high immigration rate after World War II. Okay. Then came the baby boomers.
Right.
Now the baby boomers are starting to age down, and now we're starting to go through another immigration boom because we need to keep our population up, right? Now, as our population start to age more and more people are growing to have disabilities. And now, as a society, we need to realize that far more and more people are going to need help with disabilities to stay in the workforce, or we're not going to have enough of a workforce. Right? Hi, Cassandra. I can see you there. There you are.
Oh, there. I'm unmuted.
Hi, Cassandra. And so basically, the Canada Disability Benefit that they came up with, the Parliamentary Budget Officer gave 3 scenarios, and it went from 276,000 Canadians to 1.371 million Canadians.
Wow.
Okay, what was this stat
It all
from?
depends. This is from the Parliamentary Budget Officer for the Canada Disability Benefit.
Oh, how many people will be receiving it?
276,000 was the minimum. And the largest scenario was 1.371 million. And that was based either they were going to use the Canada Disability Benefit, Canada Disability Tax Credit, right? So using the tax credit to make them eligible for the benefit would be 276,000. But if they could self-attest that they're disabled or, that they're on a disability program, like provincially, it would be 1.3 million. Ooh. So, question, 1.3 million out of 3 million on social assistance in all of Canada.
Well,
now this is an open, much bigger eligibility that would include a lot of working Canadians too. So if it's 1.3 million out of like 4 or 5 or 6 million, right? That's 25%, which is right about the same average that we think of people that have disabilities. 1 in 4 have a disability or are going to have a disability very soon. So 1 in 4, folks. So Canada Disability Benefit, 276,000 people every single month, even if it was $500 helping them. How much money is that?
A lot of coin.
Sorry, I'm talking to a puppy.
That delay, even if it was $500 a month, which it's not going to be, right? It depends on, what area you live in, how much money you already get, et cetera, because it's not universal.
Everywhere is different country,
So say an average of $500 times 1.371 million people. That's, would you look at that? That's only 685 million a month.
Okay, well, that's actually not that bad considering.
Yeah.
I mean, most large countries, large economies are, their budgets are trillions of dollars, multi-trillions of dollars. So I don't think that.
Times that by 12, that's
Yeah.
8.2 billion.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's unreasonable because what it does is it will enable people to be more productive. And I'll give you an example. I mean, there's a meme going around, but it's dead on true. And it's based on it says some people are too poor to work. And that's not based on disability. That's just based on you're living in such abject poverty, like being able to cover like a haircut and a decent pair of clothes or even transportation for a job interview. You're too poor to do it. So how do you do it? Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so
I've had days, Cassandra, where to go to work cost me $40.
Right.
Now, if you gotta do that 5 days a week, you gotta do that for 3-4 weeks until your first paycheck.
Yeah, your whole paycheck.
You don't have the money to go to work.
Well, I know, and this is where this is where I go sometimes. I think it's
also the end.
Yeah.
There's also the end too, Cassandra, that a lot of people, especially the media, don't talk about, and that is when they first get the job, right? That wait for the first paycheck, and when they get the first paycheck, it disqualifies them from certain benefits that actually puts them into a negative, into their rent, into their food.
Oh, I know. Well,
yeah.
and I wanted to say something about
because they know that's coming up.
I wanted to say something about like some of the criteria you were going on. So I've been included in some consultations through some nonprofit organizations that are part of the conduit, enabling disabled Canadians to give their input on regulations. And what we're pushing for is everybody that I've heard, whether it's an organization that we all like, or it's or it's individuals, what we've been pushing for is that for what are the qualifications? Well, first of all, everybody that's on CPP disability, everybody that's on provincial disability, and should and anybody with a disability tax credit, they should just automatically qualify. And then for those disabled Canadians that for whatever reason don't qualify for any of these programs, there should be an application process. And the other thing that we've been pushing for is that, so basically that's actually up the numbers. And I'm going to say that those numbers from here to here are based on just Carla being inept and just throwing numbers out when people ask her tough questions. Because if the qualifications that are overwhelmingly being put forward is that if you qualify for any of those programs, you shouldn't have to requalify to get the disability benefit. It should just be automatic, and that there be an easy multi-format way that's extremely simplified and does not necessarily require technology, because some people don't live in areas where they have good technology or good internet. And that it be done in a way that it's just as simple as possible for everybody that needs to apply because they don't qualify for one of these other programs. And so we've actually been thoroughly like, this is what I mean. And these are the people that are going to are discussing from the disability community. Overwhelmingly, this is what everybody's saying. Even people we don't agree with are saying this. So
Cassandra, it's like once a person's disabled, shouldn't have to qualify for something else because disability doesn't go away. And
it's like, how disabled are you? And it's like, who are you to ask that? Like, you don't know. Like, me and Alan could have exactly the same diagnosis.
Yeah. Yeah,
but it affects us completely differently and disables
in different ways. Yeah.
I bet you the worst customer for a doctor is another doctor who now has a disability and needs disability forms filled out.
Oh yeah.
Because I bet you then they're sitting there going, well, for the last 25 years, I've been sitting there questioning everybody else's disability. But now all of a sudden I'm disqualified and I've done my job for my life. And I bet you they're sitting there really angry about it now, realizing their own.
Well, I think that I think, it goes to the big, the qualifications we're pushing for are a big part of the reason we never wanted it to be a top up in the first place. We wanted it to be a replacement, because the patchwork of programs leave it. Essentially, it's the patchwork of programs that we already have that are actually leading to the inequity. And not just financial equity, but it leads to all kinds, the qualifying for all these other programs
or
lead to inequity, or maintaining your income from these programs require. Right. I mean, all of these things are hugely, they're against our basic human rights. Like, they go against what our basic human rights are. And I think the question comes down to is because there is something like part of the problem that Carla was having trouble putting her little head around was that the fact that there is this thing in the Constitution on the division of powers. So it doesn't say that the provinces are specifically supposed to provide this. And it doesn't say that the federal government is specifically either can provide social benefits like the ones we get. But all it says is that if the federal government is going to supply a benefit program like income support or whatever, that right. it not infringe on what the provinces are offering. And but if here's where that becomes challengeable, like on a charter level. So this isn't something you'd go to the human rights over. But this is where it comes challengeable, because you can say, well, yeah, that's a nice little clause. But when you're talking about disability, that actually is preventing us from, it's actually denying us all these other charter rights that we are entitled to as persons. And so does the right of, does the charter rights of the province overwrite the charter rights of the individual, especially when the individual, it makes up almost a quarter of the population. And is that like that's the fight that I think we need to find a way to take, and we need to find a lawyer willing.
Cassandra, is like there's all these programs, and like in place, like you got EI, GIS, GST.
Well, that's the basic income argument.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, all here, and then all of a sudden, you become 65. Oh, you don't qualify. That's another narrative.
Well, that's another thing we're pushing for. But I was I was more trying to on the qualification end of it. But you're right. Like 65, like since when? Like, I know people.
Just be it doesn't end then.
that have turned 65 and their income has dropped. And, one of the most tone deaf and completely disconnected things Carla Caltro ever said was that, oh, well, we've got things for seniors. And it's like, yeah, but they're just, what about, but not all seniors are disabled. And what about the ones that are? Like, it costs more for them to live. And you're saying because they're a senior, their disability doesn't count anymore. It's like,
out of touch.
I can't wait till she turns 65 and finds out. Like, come on. It
won't matter because now she's got her government pension for life.
Well, she does, but there are going to be resources that she can't, that other people with similar incomes can access, that that aren't disabled can access, that she won't be able to. And it regardless of if you're poor, that is just a reality. I mean, that is the reality of having a disability in Canada.
That's what makes it so frustrating when we hear these politicians say, "Oh, we can cover this for this group, and we can cover that for that group," and they're so tone deaf that
pinning against each other. Yeah.
Well, it's like the whole housing thing that I've been fighting on. One of the biggest frustrations, what I've found, is I keep hearing, and I haven't been able to find an actual statistic, but there's some credible organizations that I guess have done some research. I'm still trying to dig into it, but when you're talking to like multiple municipal, provincial, federal, all these levels of government, and they're doing their census and their stats and stuff, and they're like calculating like how many homeless there are. What they're not calculating is things they're not calculating and not finding the statistics on are how many people out on the street are actually disabled, and how many of those disabled people that you're finding that are homeless, how many of them are from single family households. We got that. We know that this many, we know that that there's a stat on how many single person households are homeless, but we know that an overwhelming portion of homeless people are also disabled. But what we don't know is how many of those single person households are that are homeless or disabled.
Yeah.
Right. Like there's this. Yeah.
I'm going to pass the mic over to Neil. I think what we're going to do is we'll this is a great conversation we're having here on these topics, which is awesome. It's up to Neil too, but we'll extend the segment into like another day, like so we can kind of not maybe relaunch the Disability for Dummies Part 1, unless it's up to Neil. What do you want to do, Neil? Would you want to just do like an hour of it, and then maybe
we can do an hour of it. I mean,
yeah,
it's a bit of a cluster, but but for people that don't know, I had a fire alarm happen just before we launched, and it was a burst pipe because of all of the.
Because BC's not used to the cold.
Yes. Yeah.
All this frozen pipe.
Thanks, Mother Nature.
So I'm living in a mobile home, and it was -40, and my pipes are fine.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
40. It was almost -48, like at one point. Like with the wind chill.
Way to rub it in.
Yeah. No, but you know what it is? It's there's a couple of things. Is like when we pipe things in here, we tend to insulate the pipes for the cold. And we also, when you're into something like a mobile home or something, you run your taps, right? When it gets below a certain.
Cassandra, we got down to -21 in Victoria here with the wind chill, and it was actually temperature was -16. I was like, I couldn't believe it. That's why I did the one segment out there.
I'm sorry. Okay. Even my daughter, even my daughter, who was raised in Edmonton for her teenage year, even she is like, it's so cold. I'm like, really? I said, it's like -48 with the wind chill. And she's like, I know, but it's cold for me.
We went down to the ocean, the one segment I did, and the hands were just like so cold all red. And I was just like, the wind's just howling. And it ripped off the sign right across the road from here. We got a Shoppers Drug Mart. The sign is just all like this, literally buckled right over. And it's still that way. They haven't. Okay,
now multiply that temperature. Now multiply that temperature into the minuses by 3 or 4.
Oh yeah. Ooh.
That was Alberta. From depending on where you were.
Power grid. I heard there was an issue with the power grid happening there too.
Oh well, because some of our so I mean, and Danielle Smith is really trying to spin it, but it was just because. Of course, of all the times, a couple of our gas plants that power the grid, they went down.
Oh.
And one was under maintenance. Yeah. And so it's not like, and the other thing is like somebody tweeted out something today. It was like, oh, did BC Hydro just throw shade on Alberta? Like, this article talking about how they prepared because they knew the cold was coming and that they're severely reduced because they just don't have as much water, but yet they were still able to power other provinces even and didn't go into it. And people in Alberta were just reading that and just losing it because we're just like,
or BC supplying Alberta with power because
right. And it's like seriously, we're used to this. Like as long as the year that I was living up in an acreage out just outside of Edmonton, and we were a couple days before I moved to Calgary, we were the coldest place on earth. It was like -56.
Wow.
Oh.
It doesn't happen that often, but every once in a while, like it usually gets to -30 or 40 with the wind chill at least a couple of days a year. And
Plus, like even out here, like we, I mean, we get, like an Arctic blast, but nothing like we've had in like several years. Like it's just, it was wham. And then today it was actually what we got to like -2, and
I
it felt like
was I was out I was out today.
warm.
I had to go. I had to
Oh,
go to Florida
I
today,
was honestly, it's
and
minus
it was
18, and I went
cold.
out. I was almost in my shorts, like.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I mean,
we
today
we
felt
pull
warm.
out the bar, like we literally pull out the barbecues here when it gets to about -15
Oh my gosh.
in the winter. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know. That's Alberta. I used to laugh because I was working at Superstore up in Edmonton when I first moved out here, the last time. And like it would, like literally it would warm up to -10, and all of a sudden like our deli section and everybody was grabbing the meat, and like it would just go, we just get swamped because everybody was getting ready to barbecue because it was -10.
You remember that Rick Mercer thing of the Environment Canada +1? That one? Yeah. Look it up for people that don't know that one. But Rick Mercer, the Environment Canada +1. Look it up. It's hilarious. It's hilarious.
Oh my God. Yeah.
But I didn't know if we could get started on this. And basically the reason why we came up with this idea of disability for dummies, it actually stemmed when we had Benita Zerilla on, and just before she was on, like it was a pre-taped one, but just before we taped, I told her that I had come across an article of the BC government here. They've opened up, what do you want to call it? They've just made it more permissible now to say that it's okay to give underage kids fentanyl, and to do it without parental
if they're already like so the program, the way your program runs is you have to be,
I mean, I'll actually bring up
even adults, you have to have a proven addiction that you're struggling with.
Yeah, it was under the National Post.
But yeah, let me bring up the I'll bring up the article just so I'm not let me just pull it up here.
It's quite the article.
But
yeah,
anyway,
the National, I'd be careful of the National Post. They have a way of mischaracterizing.
Well, I mean, even if it was,
I mean, they may be saying something true, but they like they kind of put a spin on it that's within a certain.
So
yeah.
It says, in what constitutes as a clear trampling of parental rights, British Columbia recently authorized the provision of safer supply fentanyl to youth across the province, regardless if parents are informed of or agree to this measure.
Well, I'll tell you, as somebody that worked on the front, that worked, well, mostly volunteer on the front lines on the downtown east side of Vancouver.
Right.
A lot of our clientele were youth, and they didn't have parents around, or their parents were not safe people to deal with. So, and they weren't in foster. Do you know what I mean? We had addicted, homeless youth, and I'll tell you, as somebody that was a youth that became, when I got to the point of where I was in full swing addiction, the cops stopped picking me up and taking me to the kid. So that's why they're doing it, because you have to be, regardless of your age, even the adult program, and what people and people, we have some idiots in Alberta that like to spin this, but if you look up the program and the legislation, which I've done because I'm constantly arguing out here for safe supply, what it is you actually have to have, in order to get the safe supply. It's not like any random person that wants to do recreational drugs can just go and get safe supply. No, it's people that are in active addiction. And so we know who those people are that are in active addiction. It's not like that hard. And you have to get it prescribed. And somebody was like, oh, but they got vending machines and anybody can access them. No, actually, and it hasn't had a lot of, it's been approved, but it hasn't had a lot of uptake. And the doctor that invented them was like, I don't know why. I kind of know why, but And what it is how these vending machines work is you have to have a prescription. And the other thing is BC so BC has a thing. So if you you have to apply for it and you have to prove that you're able to manage it and you're not trying to do anything shady with what you're already getting. And you can apply to be one of these people that you get your prescription and you take it home to use.
Okay, but
but only one person to date has been approved for it. One, because it's not that easy to get that. And so the other thing about the vending machines is an order. It's not like anybody on the street can access them. They use biometrics. So it's your own handprint.
Oh.
And what happens, and it only dispenses so it's not like you could put your handprint and get as much drugs. No, you get a specific dosage that it administers when you scan your palm print.
Well, I just wanted to make the point as well. I mean, Dan said a really good thing a little bit earlier when I wasn't running back and forth. I heard him say that, that we should only be advocating for things that we're knowledgeable of. Like if you're not knowledgeable about something, like you don't really deserve to have a really aggressive opinion necessarily, right? And
hold on before the trolls come after me. That's not what I said. I get what you're saying.
I was like, whoa!
No,
there's a huge caveat here.
No, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, so maybe you can correct me. But basically, like, I don't want to, like, I'm not the guy to speak up about addiction. I'm just saying I'm not the guy to speak about addiction because I don't know anything about it. That's all I'm saying. And I think that's what you were saying, Dan, is that if we're not knowledgeable about something, maybe we shouldn't put our mouth, out. So
the problem
I'm going to admit that for myself.
And Cassandra's hitting on the head. So, for example, what a lot of people don't know is the fentanyl issue. There is a lot, even here in Toronto, it's the same thing. There's a lot of teens and youth that are the clientele of naloxone or whatever else and everything that's going on. It's the simple thing of that there are too many underlying issues that have been let go for so long. So I probably still am, I guess, but I was an addict. I was homeless 19 years. I was a youth on the streets of Toronto and an adult on the streets of Toronto. And I'm telling you, when it comes to the fact of taking care of the issues, it's the fact that it's been handled as a business for about the past 3 decades, a total business. And if you go study budgets, it's more about who's being hired, the staff that are being hired, all this money you hear going to AISH, ODSP, all this money you hear going to AISH, ODSP, and all that shit is all for staffing and such. It doesn't go to the people and it doesn't go to the issues. So we got to get like all the different aspects of it together and then come up with the solutions that'll fix everything at once. Because if we just keep spinning like this, it's just a business, and we're just going to keep being repetitive about shit that doesn't matter 20 years later.
I know, and the people that are getting up in arms about, and it's like your teenager that is not on the street, is not using drugs, maybe you sneak a little pot. They're not the ones that are going to be getting this fentanyl or the safe supply. Like they're just not going to be. And in those cases, there would be parental rights, but a lot of these kids, they don't have parents that you can go to get permission.
Well, that's my biggest gripe about the whole thing is that there is the trampling of parental rights.
It's not though.
It can be kind of on the same topic. Like right now, like in parks and beaches and stuff, the BC government had, they've been advocating and like pushing exactly what you've been talking about, Cassandra. It's like safe supply. And so they're saying, but, we kind of keep it in, so it's in dosages of where people can access it. However, now it was talked about is I think they were going into parks and saying, well, hang on here, some of the municipalities Yeah,
I saw that say,
Yeah.
okay, so I saw the documentary you're talking that showed
but
that.
here's the pushback on it, though. Like quickly, I'm just going to quickly mention is that now apparently the BC courts have now said that no, they can actually do that anywhere they want, and the government said, well, no, like hang on, we can't do that in parks, this and that. But now the court system's now overruled them, saying, yep, they can walk down the street, they can, they can do whatever they want, but you can't have an open beer in a public place, but they can go and do the drugs, whatever they want to do, right?
That makes sense.
Well, I think, but here's the thing, though. So again, I was one of the people that like 20. Oh, I was just on a podcast last night, and I was saying, like 25 years ago, I was one of the people advocating for safe supply. What we didn't call it safe supply.
Yeah.
Because there wasn't the issue that we're having with the drug toxicity on the street right now.
Right.
The reason we were advocating for decriminalization of small amounts was because we
20 years ago too, there wasn't I'm sure fentanyl existed, but not the way it does now.
Well, I'm trying to.
So it's gotten wilder. That's what I'm saying. So we've got
I know
something that's come up in the last.
But I wanted to talk about why I was advocating for it 25 years ago.
Yeah,
though.
Absolutely. No, sorry.
Yeah. So the reason I was advocating, and a lot of us were advocating for it 25 years ago, is because what we were finding. So we opened up. I was on the board and volunteering with Pace Society on the downtown east side, and we opened up an office in Pigeon, just a half a block from Pigeon Square. Called it was the Pace Health Network, and it was for our clientele that were in active addiction. And what we were like, so if somebody comes in and they're dope sick, and you're trying to get them services, and you're trying to they're climbing the walls, they're bouncing around, they can't focus on what you're saying, they're everything that classically when people say junkie that you picture in your head of what that looks like. Mm-hmm. But if they get just a small dose that's not enough to get them high, but just enough to take the sickness away and get them even, you wouldn't even know. They don't have any of those classic things that you think of, like classic quirks and twerks that you think of when you think of somebody that's a heroin addict or whatever, an opiate addict. They just seem like a normal person. And what you can then do with them is you can now set them up with housing. You can even get them working, because they can maintain, and they're not in that constant thing of getting rid of the dope sickness. And then as soon as they get rid of it, they're back on the hunt to prevent the dope sickness again. And then they're also surviving for food, and they're surviving for shot. Do you know what I mean? They're in that total. Once you can get them even, then you can get them housing, you can get them working, and you can get them to start working on their other life issues while you're waiting to get them into treatment. And so often what happens is that people are so say you've got an addict, they're on the street, and they come into your agency and they're like, okay, today's the day. Today I'm ready to get clean. So now you got to get them a detox bed. The first thing you got to do is get them a detox bed. So you call up the detox and you say, hey, you got any beds? And they're like, nope. Tell them to call back first thing in the morning.
Right.
So now they got to get up and they got to call as soon as like first thing in the morning, and which in that lifestyle is very difficult to do. Oh. And they managed to do that, right? Maybe the first day.
Yeah.
But then they're like, oh, we still don't have call back tomorrow. So you call back the second day, they might have a bed, but most likely they won't. And then they're like, by the third, if they're getting by the time they're usually getting to the second or third time or more that they've had to get up and call in the morning, now they're sliding back into their cycle of survival and sickness and lack. Do you know what I mean? And now it could be months before they're at that point where they're coming to you again, right? And going, I'm ready. Right.
If they can at all.
But here's another scenario. So say you manage to get them in a bed. Right? You get them in the detox bed.
Right.
And the reason you want to get them in detox, because detox is not rehab. But in order to get them into rehab, you have to detox them.
Right.
And so you go get them through detox, they get out of detox, and then it's like, okay, where's the government paid for rehab bed? Oh, those are full too.
Oh man.
Do you know what I mean? And so it's like there's just not enough of these beds, but there's not enough of these beds, and it would be more expensive to try to supply enough beds for every addict. It's simpler to expand the beds, yes, but also if you can keep people in that low dose environment with a safe supply, and now with a safe supply, you can not only keep them alive, but you can also, like I said, get them in a stable living situation, help them find work or education in all of this, because now they're maintaining and they're not in that struggle. And so, yeah, I mean, and that's what people don't understand. And yeah.
Here I am back again.
Yeah.
But the reason I'll get back to the point of mentioning that article, it wasn't necessarily to talk about, and again, like, I want to make clear that I'm not one to put myself forward about, because I don't know anything about addiction. So it wasn't necessarily that I disagreed about addiction. What I was disagreeing more was the absence of parental input in the whole thing. But so that got me going on this whole list idea of like basic truths. And because we know, and the reason why I kind of thought this was a similar thing is because we all know about MAID, that MAID was originally a hard thing to apply for, and then they made it a lot more easier, and then all of a sudden it's become this really slippery slope, right? And
but I'll tell you something, and I'll give you I mean, I hate it when people call my life experience an antidote, but but I'm going to give you an antidote about my life. I find it dismissive when people say that to you, but I'm using it anyway. So for example, I was an addict. I was between the ages of 15 and between 15 and 17. I was on the streets. I had a middle class, normally dysfunctional family, like the normal amount of dysfunction for the average family, but I was on the street. Like, if I had to worry about safe supply, like if there was the issues they have now, I probably wouldn't be alive. And I'll tell you something else. I might have wanted to get clean, and I was having trouble. Say, like, I was lucky I wasn't on anything like heroin, but I almost, that almost happened, and not by my doing. Somebody tried to get me addicted,
right,
to that. But if it had been, and the government said, look, we're gonna go to my parents and, like, we really want to get your daughter off of this drug, right? My parents would not have, because they wouldn't have understood it, and they wouldn't have, and no way you would explain them. I mean, my and they wouldn't have advocated. They wouldn't have been okay with that. And the thing is what would have happened? Would that have got me home? No. Would that have helped me? No. And so parents, I mean, I'm all for parents' rights to a certain degree, but parents aren't always the best judge of what's best for their child, unfortunately.
Well, neither are governments.
And that's but the people that are administering it, like people like doctors and social workers that are genuinely living the day-to-day of this stuff, they often are. I mean, we used to have a lot of youth clientele, and not necessarily with addiction, and some of the horrible things that I saw parents do that drove their children farther away from them and created, and it's not because these parents were bad people, or that they didn't want the best for their child. They just didn't understand, and their religion or some other ideology drove them in a certain direction, and they based it on that. And honestly, it made our work harder. They couldn't understand why their kid ended up back on the street. And it's like, well, part of it is like we've been trying to help you and trying to advocate for you and trying to tell you a better way of doing this, but you keep doing exactly the opposite and wondering why you keep getting the same results.
Okay.
And so this isn't to criticize. Like, I know most parents want the best for their children, but that doesn't mean that they have the information, knowledge, or experience to be able to do it. But the frontline workers do. So yes, the government's the one that has to, the government and the courts are the ones that have to make the pass the legislation based on the evidence. And they do it based on frontline workers and other people coming and saying, look, this is why we think this is important to do, because we're on the front lines and this is what we're dealing with. And this is why we think, so that's how these court decisions tend to usually get made. I'm not saying that's perfect either. Nothing is perfect, but guaranteed there was frontline workers that were advocating, and it was based on the evidence that they live every day trying to deal with the population. And it's not, like I said, like I came from an average, pretty decent middle-class family, and that's not why I was on the street, but it wasn't, but at the same time, like there's a number of factors. My parents did do things that were not in my best interest and actually pushed me farther away. I mean, they tried to put me through their own version of a scared straight program and got a lawyer to help them. And a judge basically told them to all get pound sand, thank God. But so I can think of examples that my parents were trying to do the best thing for me, but the very thing they were doing was actually creating the thing that they wanted to avoid. And that's where people like social workers and people that are trained in medical doctors and psychologists and a team of people that are dealing with youth are sometimes better able, and sometimes too, when it's your kids, there's so much emotion involved. It's like like it's like every doctor has his own doctor, because doctors don't operate on their own family members.
No.
Right? Like, well, if you've got
and right? To add to what Sandra just said, actually, even on top of the frontline workers, what's even more important that I believe here is lived experience. So I give you a very quick example. My foray into this type of work, like I was homeless in 1997. So my foray actually into this type of work was in 2016. And the very first person that gave me a listen to or an opportunity, a chance, was named Dr. Lee Chapman. And she is the Chief Nursing Officer of Canada. She is a good friend of mine now. Her brother was lost on the streets of Toronto in 2015 to addiction and homelessness. So the fact that we have to have people with the lived experience at the table, like I sit on the Family Health Board team that services the Gay Village and Moss Park in downtown Toronto, right? So I concur with what Sandra says about having people with that experience, but the lived experience at the table, because you can't judge a book by its cover, right? And like MAID, when it comes to MAID, I don't know about you all, I personally won't give those motherfuckers the honor of killing me.
Exactly.
So fuck them.
Right. And I agree with you there. Like, I don't agree with the expanding the MAID for mental health. But my whole thing about that is based on one thing. We don't have you cannot determine, like, the experts trying to advocate for it are saying, well, there's some people that are treatment resistant. And my argument is, you don't know that they're treatment resistant because you can't provide them
with the support and services,
with the services they need for as long as they in continuum. You keep cutting them off, and then they have to find another provider, and then they get a few more visits, and then have to find another, and they don't have a continuum where you can determine that they are so treatment resistant in the first place until you can provide. And that's the problem there, is they're not providing the care. And that's the difference between MAID and this issue,
That's exactly.
The next time an expert tells you this and tells you that, ask them how many years they were homeless. Ask them how many years they were a fucking addict. Until somebody can answer that question with a number, they're not the experts in the situation. The people that have been through it. People that have been through it, such as yourself and myself, we're the experts. The people that are the experts on UBI are Joseph. The
Yeah, but
people
I'm
that
not a
have
medical
never been
expert. Like
through
there's
the situation before in their fucking lives and have never spent a minute homeless are not the experts on fucking homelessness.
well, I agree to a certain, like I think that what we, especially when we're talking about, because addiction is a medical issue.
Mm-hmm.
And so that you've got two things. You've got the experts of lived experience that can tell you overwhelmingly what works and what doesn't, and you can get a lot of them, but you also need that medical expertise as well. And you kind of need, like, that's why I see when it comes to things like what we're talking about here, it's really a team of people that have to, like, you need a team of experts that have experts in different areas, that they're the ones that can collectively give you a best practice model. And most of the kids, like, honestly, like, unless your kid's out there and is a street kid that's been going through the foster care system and dealing with all of that, the likeliness of you having to worry about your parental consent are, they're almost zero, because it has nothing to do with that. It's trying to deal with that population that doesn't have that. And, or, like, my parents were not informed enough to deal with what I was going through or to understand, and so, yeah, I mean, and that's just the way it is. It's not their fault. They were doing the best they could. And it's not about that. And the problem I have, the people that are bringing up and trying to stir the pot on this parental rights issue are people like David Parker, her out of Alberta, who did this horrific thing about the downtown east side that was completely false. And I know, because I know people working on the downtown east side today. Like, I might not be there anymore, but I know people that are there. And I know it's unequivocally, and I did my research. And when I say I did my research, I looked at credible sources. I know how to, like, I looked at credible sources. I looked at the actual legislation and read it. Like, I didn't take it off as some half-cocked video of somebody's opinion on Facebook or whatever. I did it by reading the legislation and looking at it and looking at the policies and looking at and actually reading this stuff. And the parental rights argument is being used. So David Parker is this horrific human being. He is a Hitler-esque populist kind of personality. Like, he's a very dangerous man, and he's been leading these. He's one of the people, but there's people like him as well that have been doing it, and a lot of them are convoy people. And they're using this parental rights issue to get people worried and get people excited. And it's not just on this issue, it's also on things like LGBTQ and whether kids can use pronouns. These are the same people driving that narrative on that are the same people that are trying to drive the narrative and get people up in arms and scared.
Yeah, it's like
on this issue.
It's like the like a dictatorship.
Right. So populism is you take something that is a genuine, that might be a genuine concern, and you inflame it, and you inflame it, and you tell people all this scary stuff about it.
Yeah.
And so that they don't, and then you get them all excited, and they're thinking, oh no, they're going to trample on my rights. And it's so interesting, because I was just watching a documentary on Hitler's. I was watching it specifically because I talk a lot about Hitler's early years when I'm trying to raise the alarms on some of the stuff I see going on right now. And I wanted to recursor, but one of the things that struck me was it really dug into how he got people to buy into what he was selling. And it was by doing exactly things like this, like picking issues like safe supply or that were and inflaming, like giving this inflammatory rhetoric that was full of misinformation. But but because he touched people on that emotional level,
Yeah, plays on their emotions and it rolls with it.
And then that's how they built their movement. Like that's how they build these movements, is because there's people like you and I that might look at these people initially and going, oh, they're really scary, until they touch on an issue that concerns you in a way, and you might not even recognize it's coming directly from them right away. But by the time you do, you might be they've gotten you so
intertwined
into it that you start to lose perspective, right? And you start to go, maybe I made a mistake about that guy.
Or you go, oh, maybe they're right, because
maybe they are, and they're doing it specifically. But if you, I go back to looking at the legislation and how.
I went to this church once, and I was just my buddy at the time. His parents were really into this church called the Word of Life Church in Niagara, and it was really heavily evangelistic and stuff. And I was just like, okay, I'm curious. I'm a curious person. I'll just go. But once I realized that the narrative was like, oh, you're disabled. We should see if we can make some phone calls and get you in a group home or an institution where someone can manage your money and stuff like that. I'm like, pardon my French, but BLOW me. Like, I'm sorry, but if you think for 1 minute I'm going to step into your church and you're telling me that you're going to control my finances and stick me in some group home.
Oh, well, they were trying to do that to me, by the way.
And I was like,
not the church.
This was back in the 90s. So when I start seeing like these alt-right Christian-based groups using fear to drive a community or group of people, whether they're LGBTQ or disabled or whatever, I'm like, you guys are kidding me. It's one of the reasons I'm probably so agnostic and so Celtic driven as far as my belief system is, because the whole alt-right, and my sister and my brother-in-law are really far-right Christian, and my brother-in-law said something pretty stark stuff to me.
I have a cousin
in confidence, like they go to the Harvest Bible, which is started on the West Coast. It's a big Christian church. And they've been, during the pandemic, they've been up on charges of, they were basically not following the rules on how many people they could have in their church. Anyway, and he was saying, like, oh, so how's it going, Alan? And I'm like, oh, I'm good. I'm just wrapping up at Niagara before I moved to Kingston to my new apartment. He goes, oh, as a handicapped person, you should really be in a group home or an institution and blah blah blah, and that you're taking an apartment that an able-bodied person needs, and that you shouldn't be looking for work. Oh yeah, and I was like, I'm at that point, and I'm like, okay, I'm done with you. You're just another reason I'm moving to Kingston.
Right, because able-bodied people are so in need of apartment. Like, they're not the people most in need of apartments. Like, what do you?
And it's like, and it just set yet another red flag to me on this whole right-wing Christian.
Well, it's not even right-wing question. I mean, they use Christian, but I would argue, one of my favorite things
as a vehicle to.
I'll give you an example. So I have a cousin who won't talk to me anymore. Is not Facebook friends with, because when he starts promoting things like Proud Boys or sending off some of these really crazy, I call him out on some of his hateful crap. I call him out on it, and he's a pastor in the Lutheran Church.
Look, got the delay there. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, he's a pastor in the Lutheran Church, and I call him out on it, right? And he doesn't like that. But he's an anti-vaxxer. But I'll tell you something. He still held church remotely and obeyed all the rules. Do you know why? Do you know why he did that, even though he was against it all? because there's something in there's and I can't remember chapter and verse, but it's in the Bible. You might even be familiar with it. And disciples asked Jesus, well, whose do we follow, God's laws, or do we follow, or do we follow like Caesar's laws?
Yeah, give to Caesar what is Caesar's. Yeah.
Yeah, give unto God what is God's, and give unto Caesar. Yeah. And he was saying, no, you have to follow both.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. So it's like, so my cousin didn't agree with it, but because the Bible said, like, at least he's smart enough to, I mean, I don't agree with some of his takes on the Bible, but he understood that part where it says, no, you got to obey both the laws of man and the laws of God, not just, it's not a pick and choose thing. And so, like, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I know this whole episode kind of got derailed a little bit because of all this smoke, like alarms going off and everything in the burst pipe. But I did want to at least get to one question if we could, the first question. And I mean, we spent about an hour getting to the first question. So but basically, like, what I was trying to lead to was this whole idea of government as parent, and I mean, and when I make these statements, we have all 15 of them at the bottom of each of this video today, and when we continue the series, it'll be all the 15 that we're going to go through for the whole series. Okay. But today we're just going to do like maybe one of the questions only, and that's it. But at least you can go back to the bottom and see the whole list. And I just want to let everybody know that this list is my list with Brent and Sonia too. We all kind of joined heads and we came up with a list, and maybe everybody here is not going to agree with the list, but it's our list. And I just want to say that for one of the shows, when we do a debrief show, we're going to give the opportunity for people to say, I really didn't like this one on the list. I would rather put this on the list or whatever. So we want to get that feedback. But basically, I want to just say a statement, like a basic truth statement of like, this is kind of a simple truth, and I want to get people's gut reaction to that truth of of what they think of that true statement, if it's bogus or not. Just your gut reaction to what I'm going to say. Some of them are kind of funny, and some of them are really vague and open-ended, and you're like, why are you being so vague and open-ended? Well, that's on purpose.
And some of them are very serious. Yeah.
Some of them are very serious. Some of them are very open-ended, and some of them are funny. But anyway, so I'm going to start with question, or not. It's not really a question. It's a statement. It's a true statement. And again, this is why we're calling it Disability for Dummies, is it's a nod to the old, the old book series of, DOS for Dummies and that kind of thing, where it was always drilling things down to a very basic, simplistic level. But then you went deeper a little bit too. They had things where they would drill down and go a little bit deeper, but it was always it was always at first a very simplistic, like basic, simple statement. And it was, so this is what I've done. We've come up with 15 true statements, and I want to get people's reaction to what they think of these true statements. So the first question is, or the first statement is, drum roll, so this is a moral compass check. Moral compass check. Any claim that vulnerable and disabled are well taken care of is false. So that's the statement. So do we have any takers on that first statement?
Let's go.
I'm sure you got all of us on that.
And I will repeat the question again. Moral compass check. Any claim that vulnerable and disabled are well taken care of is false.
Who would like to go first?
Who would like to go first?
Fat F.
I'm gonna let Dan go because I can just take over, and you'll never get me off.
In any other province, I'm not sure. In Ontario, absolutely, man. Absolutely. So they take care, they put a roof over your head. They give you an RGI unit if you're fucking lucky. But no wraparound services, nothing else. Ever since the late 1990s with Mike Harris and the government here in Ontario, it done fucked everybody up. They had the rates back then that they should have now. And it just, So in answer to your question, any other province? I don't know. Ontario?
Big fat
Not happening.
Wow.
No.
Oh, okay. That's good to know, Dan.
If that was the case, I'll just give you a very quick example. If that was the case, you see how that fat, sorry, I shouldn't be defaming anybody. That lovely premier that we have in Ontario named Doug Ford, if that were the case, every time he says, my friends, folks, and they all say, oh yeah, he's helping all his friends. I worked at Deco Labels and Tags over 20 years ago. I would say I would have had to have been labeled a friend back then. I've gotten not one stitch of fucking help. It's anybody that can benefit anybody's pocket or their portfolio. Because as I was told by Stephanie Smythe back in 2013, unless you have a high portfolio, you ain't getting talked to by shit. And if you guys notice, these past couple of years, there's only been, like Cassandra can tell you, because she gets involved with media and stuff too. There's only been a few media here in Toronto that have said anything about this. And the only time they say anything is when their asses are up against the wall and the carrot stick's stuck right up there, okay? It's that fucking simple. Pardon my language, everybody, but it has to be said.
No, it's I'm with you, Dan. Like, I mean, and my answer to your Doug Ford is I raised you a Daniel Smith.
I am not going to say anything because my next comment is going to get me. It'll get me contacted by the OPT.
So, I mean, the UCPO here, they tend to like to sell ever since Kenny, but Daniel Smith is just 100 times worse.
What's his face? Scott Moe.
Oh, that's Saskatchewan. He's not even. No. Like, honestly, like he likes to lick her ass, but no, pardon my language.
Speaking of licking ass, there's somebody that's trumping both Daniel Smith and Ford. And I've been looking into it lately. It's this Blaine Higgs piece of crap out in New Brunswick.
Oh God, no, he's mellow.
Health rights, because this is what the show was supposed to be.
I know he is. Right? Oh, trust me.
So this is what I had prepped. But the motherfucker denouncing house rights and taking away health rights for people that are part of the LGBTQ community and trans kids that want, like, give me a break, pal. Welcome to 2024.
Oh, just stay tuned because I would argue that it's still much worse out here.
Wow. To take away their right. Oh, that's interesting.
Well, no, they're trying to do much the same thing out here. It's not.
But
anyway, I was going to say about my Daniel Smith. I raised him a Daniel Smith, and I want to say so. The UCP government out here, like they like to tout that. Oh well, disabled in Alberta get a better income than anybody else,
right?
In Canada, right. In fact, the Northwest Territories income for disability is slightly higher than ours.
Truck it in though. They got to truck it in. They got to stop, trucking all the supplies.
Well, and it's still not sufficient. Like it's not.
It costs
but even in Alberta, like the other thing they like to tout is we got a higher median income than other provinces, and that is also true. But now as of now, I mean, Calgary was always marginally behind, like, say, Vancouver in as well as livable income, but now it takes a greater, and our wages, we're the only province where our wages have stagnated completely and are almost reversing. And yeah, we've got a higher unemployment rate. We've got a lot of things happening in Alberta that are like, there's no more, the old Alberta advantage that a lot of us are used to is gone, and it's getting worse. But even when it wasn't, the amount I got, like currently they just gave me a cost of living raise, and I'm with because I also have a special diet. Right. So it would be under $2,000 a month if I didn't have the special diet. Because I have the special diet, I'm now getting over $2,000, just a few dollars over $2,000 a month. and I've reduced my rent costs dramatically, and I still am having trouble getting through till the end of the month. And I still have to pay for things. Like, I can pay for a few more things, but they're not like,
Yeah.
they're not fun things. They're just things that I needed,
basic
needs that I was going without, that I can now pay for, and I still am not paying for all of them, and I'm still struggling to get through. And that's with going to the food bank. So this whole idea that somehow, oh, we get all this money and we're so taken care of, and then it's like, oh, but they'll give you services. Yeah, the services have been cut.
Mm-hmm.
They've become more strict. I've been offered to go recently. I had my home care person was like, oh, well, why don't you go into like independent living or assisted living or whatever? And I'm like, because I'm not there, and I'll lose more than I'll gain. Like I get home care coming to my home. It's not enough.
Well, you
but if I go in that, you're also going to take away my independence and income. So we're not taken care of. We're not taken care of. Like we're always behind the ball. Always. Yeah. We're always behind the ball. Absolutely. We're never getting what we need.
Well, it's the autonomy again, right? It's your decision of what works good for you, where you want to live. And that's the problem I have with the BC government too. It's saying, well, we can give you cheaper housing, put you on a waiting list. I go, right. But what about, I want to live in the housing sector I want to live in. I want to live where I want to live, not where they say that they want the disabled person to live. Now they will pick the community where they want you to live. And if you on a list and you don't take it, well then I'm sorry, but there's nothing we can do.
Same here. I'm on the list for Calgary housing. It's the same thing. Like if they offer me something and I'm like, I don't want to live in that area, or I don't want to live in that building because I know it's run down.
Yeah.
It's like tough luck. You're off the list now, and you have to wait a long time to reapply. And
I just wanted to say that first question too is inspired by you keep sharing the story, Brent, of like the conversations you had with your mom, when your mom would say, oh, don't worry, Brent, the government will take care of you, right? And you would have arguments with her because you'd say, no, they're not going to take care of me. So that is the inspiration behind that question.
But Neil, with kind of, which I'm not going to dive into because everyone knows listening to that, Brent will just dive right in. That's just throw it out the bowl, to the ball court here. But I used to have the same argument also with my mom, but also with my family doctor. Like seriously, him and I would sit there, and he would sit. How doctors, they have that little stool, that little round stool, and I'm thinking, how the hell is this guy sitting here so long? He's not going to fall off the back. And he'd be leaning over. And I knew when he was like mad, like very, very, or very tuned into what I'm saying. And one time I went in and he leaned over like this and he says, Brent, I've known you since you were a little, tiny little baby. Mm-hmm. And I know your capabilities. I know what you're good at. I know what you're not good at. I go, but you're not me. Right. But physically, I know like how you're able to react. However, you can't change on who you are. It always stuck in my mind. You can't change who you are. Your personality is who you are. Your disability is who you are. About the fact is,
let me answer your question while I'm at the computer for a second because I'm downstairs dealing with something. Sorry, guys. Okay, can you repeat the question, Neil?
The question was, number one, moral compass check. Any claim that vulnerable and disabled are well taken care of is false. That's just a statement.
Yeah, and
that statement is completely true. Okay, there are people right now in Canada that are approaching retirement age that are realizing that their Canada pension plan payments are less than what a disability payment is. Okay. Wow. There are people realizing that there are inequities in our system that are so great that it is better off to make yourself disabled than it is to not be in certain cases, in certain provinces. When you approach a disability or a retirement age, your retirement pension is fucking peanuts compared to what you would on social assistance. And then they go, whoa, wait a second, but social assistance is what's been costing me my whole life, all these taxes, and I've been told that that's what's been robbing me. But then all of a sudden, I'm the one being robbed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's when they realize it's way too low. And that's my comment.
Yeah.
And
No, that's the truth.
exactly it, though. That's exactly it. To summarize what I was saying too, is that the doctor says the system will take care of you, Brent. I go, well, my neighbor, it was got to a very bad accident and had no feelings from neck down, and the same thing. I said, but he said the system won't take care of him. Well, I don't know why, because the system is there to take care of you. Well, evidently it didn't, and
Well,
from that point on, I
Well,
knew.
right,
I
because
think the
people,
social.
I only need 2 baths a week, and my mom, who's 83, she only needs 1 bath a week.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
we're so well taken care of. Like,
Yeah.
somebody needs to, you know, there's been news things out here. Yeah. Like your home care companies, like they cut people less able than me. And it's like,
I remember when my mom was actually in a home. We had put her in a home, and they had started cutting back. You guys, cutting back on bathing. My mom would go into a plateau state, so which was good for me, because she had Alzheimer's and she had Parkinson's, right? So double whammy. But she had gone to a plateau state, and one time they went to go for, give her a bathe, and I guess they didn't know she was in that mode. And she says, "I can take care of myself." She says, "I'm not invalid. I can take care of myself." She literally got in the shower and had a shower, and they're like, "Whoa, this is amazing." And they told me about it. I'm like, "What?" Like, yeah. And they're like, and then she said, "How dare you want to cut back on bathing for me?" That came from my mom, and I took her out for coffee and everything because she was in that mode. So she told me about it. And I was like, they cutting back on that? And I said, I go, why are you doing that? Why? Is my mom's life worth less? It's the system. I go, well, then the system is fucked. Pardon my language.
Yeah.
And I don't normally swear on my own show, but I said, there's a problem here. Let's fix it.
Well, again,
it's simple. Like, yeah.
Sorry. I was just going to say something that Brent always says all the time is, the government response all the time is there's more to do.
Yeah.
And the problem with that is they've been saying that for the last 30 years.
It's avoid accountability at any cost.
To quote Yoda.
Well, and that's my debate with Jeff on the poverty line issue is that first of all, the measurement of the poverty line does not account for it does not account for anybody, even if they aren't disabled, and it doesn't account. But and the thing is this idea that, well, we'll ask for crumbs and then we'll work it up later. It doesn't work that way. We've been doing it that way for decades, and because we're always satisfied with crumbs, it never gets better because we never demand what we actually need.
I always look at it as they keep kicking the can down the road, and I learned that one from an MLA, a BC MLA, and I'm not going to say who it is, but he told me, he says the problem is that, and he's in this, the system, he knows how it works, and he says, Brent, the problem is they love to keep kicking the can down the road so they don't have to deal with it right now. And I'm like, but they have to deal with it. He says, well, let's put up our time, let somebody else deal with it.
I asked the late Jack Layton why nothing has really changed in the last 15, 20 years as far as the cost of living, of affordability, disability. He said, you know what, Alan? He said, I hate to tell you this, but there's far too much profit in poverty.
Yep.
He's right.
And that came from Jack Clayton.
Absolutely.
And
he said there's far too much profit in
Take
poverty.
food banks.
Yeah.
and Loblaws.
So it goes back to what I said in the fucking beginning, man. It goes back to what I said in the fucking beginning.
Yeah.
It's all about money. It's all a business, right? Because
Yeah.
the reason why I'm going to piss off like this and I'm going to shut my mouth because I'm going to say something that's going to get the OPP to call me. But motherfucker, man, everybody wants to talk about fucking money or meals or nurse hours or what have you, and that's fine. But bathing fucking human beings, man,
Yeah.
come on, man. If I have to go through, my mom is 69 years old in April. If I have to go through this shit, then throat punches will be thrown out. Okay. But to fucking argue over feeding somebody or
Yeah.
bathing somebody,
Yeah.
are these people fucking, these people are the ones that need to be in 1001 fucking Queen Street or Canage, man. Simple, straight up. Sorry.
Yeah. No, I tell you,
Agree.
I was in that mode. I was shocked, and I had a good couple good choice words that came out of my mouth, and I'm not going to repeat it on here. But you can imagine what I said to them, and their response was, "Everyone, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that the system's failing your mom." I go, "I'm sorry that you are you," is what I said. I said, "I'm sorry that you are you." I said, "What am I going to do? Pull my mom out and say, hey, I'll go and bathe her. I'll go and tell her that she can go and have a shower herself and take care of herself." Like, what the hell? But anyway, there was,
Well,
I'm not.
Listen, man,
I
if I had to ever come to the point where I had to go watch my fucking mother, trust me, I know she listens. I wouldn't, but I'd make sure that she was bathed every fucking day or at least every second day. This is
Yeah.
ludicrous to think that we could even let our people go like
Right.
that. And the fact that after COVID, it's now happening again is fucking retarded. And that's why I want part of my language, but I'm just letting loose, okay? And
Yeah.
that's why I want to listen to what Cassandra and Joseph and Alan has to say about the numbers because I'm on the streets guy. I will throw punch you for doing shit like this. But to feel the numbers and get everything hashed out, that's why we need all these people at the table.
Well,
Well,
then that's solution based. Like, that's why we need solutions to these problems that are happening in society, and having
Well,
advocates like ourselves that are really bringing the awareness to all these inequalities and across Canada. I invite so many more to keep joining with us as we continue on.
Well, and it's the healthcare too. Like, I mean, when you come down to healthcare, when you're talking about disability, like if you think an average person, they go to their family doctor, they may or may not ever get a referral to a specialist, depending on how healthy they are. But the minute you got disability from just any kind of disability, including chronic conditions, you have to visit the doctor more often. You also have specialists more often. You need more imaging things, and all those things get cut or they're not properly forwarded. Like, just my spine, like I just got one MRI done that I waited a year for, and like basically my doctor's like, well, we can try physio, but you might need surgery because there's a bulging disc. And that's not even the one that's causing me the most pain. It's my thoracic spine, and I'm not getting that till June.
Oh my
and
God.
I'm like, I might have to have spine. And how long is it going to take me to get spinal surgery? How long?
Lord.
Right? Like, don't tell me. And you know what? Honestly, if I could get my thoracic thing taken care of, because I thought it was my neck for the longest time that was making it difficult for me on the computer. That's the only thing that's been preventing me from doing a lot of work that I could otherwise do, is this. It aggravates me to sit and type at the computer, and it's not my neck, it's my thoracic spine that's causing the aggravation. And I don't know what's going on, and I won't know until I get that MRI and what the solution is. So the fact that, like, just the underfunding of services like MRIs, or the privatization, which we got here. I could have had an MRI in Alberta ASAP, but I would have had to pay hundreds or thousands of dollars, depending on what kind of and what level of MRI I got.
I'm going to be all producery and because shit's hitting the fan on the show, which is good. I like to see that, but shit's hitting the fan over here too. And I'm getting a lot bombarded with a whole bunch of crap because of the burst pipe. So we kind of have to wrap up the show, unfortunately.
Okay.
But we'll do this again
Okay.
next month. We'll kind of do a reboot.
Yeah, do a reboot. Yeah,
on Monday.
Yeah.
But I'm glad we at least got started at least on the first question at least.
Yeah. Well, I know. I'm just thinking of all the ways
Um,
we're not taking care of like everybody in. It's not just the people. Just to close up, like it's not just the people, but I think about like the average person that has that's like, oh well, but the government provides for them. The government's got all these programs, don't they provide? And it's like, no.
Well,
they don't. It
whole
looks good on paper, but in practice, it's not happening.
Well,
that's the whole social narrative, right? Is hey, what do you mean my taxes aren't making sure these folks are all taken care of? Wait a minute, how did I become injured? Now I'm disabled. Oh my God, nothing's covered.
Well, I hear the thing, Alan, is when I hear the news, they talk about poverty and how it's affecting seniors and or people low income. What about freaking people with disabilities? Oh, but seniors, they keep that narrative of seniors.
Well, but look at the stats on it. The stats on persons with disabilities below the poverty line, and it's not just it's persons with disabilities and seniors. And the seniors that are below the poverty line, what are they most likely to be? Disabled seniors.
Yep, exactly.
If anybody is wondering, by the way, if anybody's wondering what this writing behind me is, okay, that's the 28 points of information that they collect just from a male person during the Mincome project in the 70s. This was stuff information like the number of jobs they had last week, the labor force participation last week, gross earnings last week. Were you permanently ill or disabled? Did you collect tips, bonuses, and commissions in 1974? There was lots of information that they used to gather that when Dr. Forget studied basic income from Mincome, the reason why she didn't release her statistics until many years later was because there was many years worth of research to do. There was a lot of statistics that most people don't realize that our government already has and they already know.
Yep.
But there's lots they're not collecting currently.
Of course. And there's some that they don't collect on purpose because they've already been sued in the past for doing so or infringing on other people's rights. And so there's lots of stuff that we as a society would think that they should do, that there's certain things that are illegal now that they used to do.
Yeah, but it's not illegal to figure out how many, if you can figure out how many people that are homeless or disabled and how many people, how many people are with one or one person households are homeless.
I don't
then
mean
you can
about
figure
the
out
objections of the one person.
Yeah,
I don't mean the
objections
of the one person, Cassandra. I mean that the governments sued each other, saying, I have privacy concerns. I can't tell you this information from this government department because it's going to dissolve the information from another government department that doesn't have your permission. And this is how we got into this place in the first place, is that the governments all fight with each other.
Oh, I know that.
They won't disclose the information to each other.
Poverty, though?
Yeah, well,
no, it's illegal to not offer them a program on poverty. And that's the thing about the human rights that we don't understand. Is that UN human rights say that they need to offer you the programs, not that they need to make sure you participate in them.
Right, just offer it.
And they have to be adequate. Right? They have to be adequate, and they even specifically lay out what adequacy means. But they don't say how adequate. They do.
Exactly. They don't say how adequate.
No, they do. They say that it has to. No, they do. They actually say, in the UN Convention, it actually outlines, it like safe.
No. What I mean is, it doesn't say that you need to have 75% of the poverty line. It doesn't say it doesn't say you have to be this percentage of the poverty line or this percentage of your median income.
No, but
what you have to offer.
They don't need that. They don't need that. What they need to do is just ask yourself, is that person able to afford an accessible, safe, warm, secure place to live and pay for all their utilities and afford adequate food, enough food, not where they're scrounging and having to go to food, but adequate food is enough to eat every day. And it says that they have to, like, it when it talks about, it's talking about, it specifies an excessive amount of adequacy at every level. Percentages aren't necessary.
When you read the language, though, Sandra, it says access to food. It doesn't say you must make sure the food goes in their hand.
It says it has to.
You have to offer them the food.
It actually even says that they have to offer us. There was just a court. There was even a court case on this. We discussed this, God, a year or two ago. But no, like they actually even decided a case where it was like, no, you actually have to offer this person support, and the support has to be adequate enough to take care of all their needs, and like, you know, you have to give it to enough to add to give all their needs. They've already ruled on it.
Standard.
And they've also said that they've also said in there that like income support, like programs for income support, like for disability, people with disabilities, supplying these things should not be part of a welfare program or a welfare system. Should not be considered welfare. It should be considered an adequate disability income. Pension. And that's it. It does not have, but it should not be considered welfare. And so the fact that we lump our in provinces across Canada, we lump disability in with welfare.
It's all the same shit pile. It's all the same shit pile.
And I just want to say very quickly in my closing that thank you guys for having this show today. I'm sure we'll get off on the right foot next week. I apologize to all the viewers and to you guys for the cussing and swearing, but this is fucking real life, man. This is reality. And when it comes to life and death issues, I am not going to fucking change until I'm 100 years old or dead in the ground. So I thank you guys for all the stuff. And
I apologize. I think I started it.
Well, that's okay. Fuck shit, damn piss, all good, right? But I really hope that your situation works out for you. And going forward, I really look forward to seeing all these loudmouth, great advocates online and all over the place going for 15 different issues, coming in here and defending the right of persons with disabilities and people in Canada and people that need the help, the hand up, not a hand out.
That's right.
Exactly. And with that, we'll do closing comments. Dan, thanks on that. It's always awesome to hear your perspective on things. And I mean, we need to have people with lived experience and things in policy driven that affects your life. I want you to come on to the show, join the panel, and join on our comment section on YouTube. If you want to be a guest, come on to the show. Let's talk. Definitely.
And again, talking about access to food, we're going to be having Biff Naked on, and she's going to be talking. She's going to be talking about.
I saw that
the welfare food challenge. So that'll be really exciting. That
Thursday, January.
Oh, I want to hear that.
Yeah,
Thursday.
I love myself today, not like yesterday. I'm cool, calm. I'm going to be okay.
So that I'm really looking forward to that. Yeah.
No, it's gonna be so cool because she's coming.
I can't believe you got her. Like, that's amazing.
Yeah, there was a lot of back and forth with Eric Alper, and I might have annoyed him a little bit, but it was like so much back and forth.
Congratulations, but it was good job.
Yeah.
And with that, I'm going to play a little sound clip and for Biff Naked and before we close out. But actually, I'll go to Joseph first and Ellen, and then I will play a little clip for our listeners. This is a little teaser for the show coming up on Thursday, January 18th, 11 o'clock a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time.
Maybe 5 minutes before 11 and 5 minutes before.
Yeah,
because we usually do 5 minutes. Yeah,
she's gonna be on for an hour, so tune in. I mean, send in all your comments and share the post on social media, on Twitter. I call it Twitter. I don't care what Elon calls it. I call it Twitter. That's what Twitter is. That's the name. That's what we know. And it's on Facebook. I've advertised it. Also put it on Instagram too. So if you follow me on Instagram, You're gonna see it there. Share the hell out of it. Just keep on posting it out.
Yeah.
Joseph, I'm gonna send over to you and over to you, Alan, and yeah, Cassandra. Well, I guess we've already had our comment with you.
But we have to be fast, unfortunately.
Yeah, very fast.
Because I do have a bunch of shit happening here.
Yeah.
But anyway, go ahead.
So for my closing comments, I would like to say that Disabilities for Dummies, Part 1. Okay, here's a good one for you. Article 28 of the UN Charter says equal access 5 times for 5 points for people with disabilities.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's it. That's all they like to keep saying. Equal access, equal access, equal access.
Yeah.
But is it really equal?
Yeah. Yeah, good point.
That is really good point.
As we go along on this journey through the 15 points, you will see that later down the list we'll touch on things exactly like that, Joseph.
Oh yeah.
It'll be a fun journey down the list of 15 points.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah.
It looks like Alan, are you? Yeah. Okay, I thought maybe you were taking it out.
I'm ready. I'm not gonna be long-winded here, but I think my whole of course, hey, we're Canadian with disabilities, we ... is a great idea, and it really does tie into that first statement. Are we well cared for? Because this is the society narrative is oh well, people with disabilities are taken care of, but why am I being taxed, or why am I being charged? So if anybody's interested in doing one of these, I'm just looking for 10 seconds.
Hey, they like the ears.
Anyway, I'll bring it up more next time, but I'm hoping people will send in one. All you gotta do is put your phone up while you're walking out going, of course I'm a disabled Canadian. I have issues trying to get on buses, or I had mobility issues, and I just want to take as many of these little clips as I can and feed them into one video and get them out there. So thanks, Neil, for bringing up today's dummy statement, because it ties in really well.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I think it's a great idea, Ellen.
It is. Yeah. Disability stories.
And it's easy to, and everybody's got a phone. All you have to do is hit record and record yourself walking down maybe a sidewalk or whatever. And I want as many out there as possible.
Yeah.
And if we hit anyone that's nonverbal, they can get a friend to do it, and they can sign language it while that person's doing it for them. All I needed to say is start with, of course I'm disabled, I have to, and then your blank statement that's your own. And that's it. And
done deal.
And then close it, record it, and we'll get you an email for it to go to. So it doesn't have to be a minute long, 10 seconds, 20 seconds, and that's it.
Yeah. Whatever works good for you.
If you want, folks, you can email your clips to stories@durb.ca, and I'll send them to Alan.
Oh, great. That's good idea too.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get an email up in the description for the next one. Where people
and Neil, Joseph said that he can play with that audio.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
From before the launch.
Yeah.
If you send me the recording, I could make some teasers for you if you want.
Sure.
Yeah,
I'll give you $5 if you take out the cursing.
Yeah. No, I just wanted to say too, like I wasn't able to finish my thought, but when the government says, "Oh, there's more to do,"
oh yes,
it reminds me of the
always going to be more.
Yeah, well, it reminds me of the wisdom of Yoda, right? Like I'm a big Yoda fan, and it's like Yoda said it in the movies. He says, "Do or do not. There is no try," right? Remember when Luke Skywalker was trying to raise the X-wing out of the
Mm-hmm.
out of the lake or whatever, and
Oh,
he's like, and Luke's like, oh, well, I'll try, and then Yoda's like, well, do or do not. There is no try,
Yeah.
so when they say there's more to do, well, just do it.
Just do it.
Don't
Yeah.
Do it,
say
man. Do it.
don't
Do
say
it.
there's more to do. You just do it. You've had 30 years.
Cut the
And it's like,
bull.
well, there's more to do.
Oh, yeah.
Listen, with all due respect to
Get her
Trudeau, right?
done.
Yeah.
I am unbiased voter, but to end it for me, with all due respect to Trudeau, every time he says he recognizes or there's more to do, I think to myself, motherfucker, aren't you 40-something years old and your father was in 1970-something? Get with the program, everybody, right?
Well, he's done things his father wouldn't do, though.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Exactly.
I mean, we got to give him that. Like his father outright refused to do things, and he came along and did them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think his father would be pretty upset on some of the things.
A couple of them, yeah,
sure, yeah.
I think
Oh,
so
yeah,
too.
oh, yeah.
His dad would be rolling over in his grave right now, going, "The best thing you're known for, son, is legalizing marijuana. That's the best thing you did for this country, because that's the only thing they remember you for. That and high immigration. That's it. That's the only thing
Listen,
Canadians
I don't get
remember."
mad about much, but if you touch that marijuana, I'll kick your ass, Joseph.
No. I didn't say that was a bad thing. I said that's what he's remembered for.
Yeah, but you say, well, one thing his father would be really upset with him. Justin, come on. You promised a Canada disability benefit years ago. Why are you dragging the hell out of this?
Well, actually, there was something specifically, and it's escaping me, and maybe next show I can remember, but there was something specifically that Pierre Elliott Trudeau refused to do. And it's something that affects all of us, and Trudeau has actually done it. So but I think I've got a bunch of personal family stuff on the brain, so that I'm going to blame it on that. Why I had it just a second ago and it just went.
Anyway, we're going to punch out, but I before we punch out, I just wanted to make a note that MJ is in chat, and he wants to join next week, so he will be on next week. And as well, we have Minnie on cam in chat. Remember Minnie? She says that she wants to be on the show next week too. So we'll have two new participants next week.
I might be heading out to Vancouver next Monday.
Well, next Monday. Let me know. And maybe we can
have a Tim's.
We can maybe meet up. Let me know on that.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Yeah. And before we end it, I'm gonna end the segment with a little bit of Biff Naked, a little clip of the audio of her coming up on our next show.
Okay.
And here we go.
It doesn't come across very clear, though, unfortunately.
It did a minute ago. Something about the positioning.
You just have to position it differently, and it'll come through.
Come backwards.
Go backwards a bit. That's better, yeah. Go back a bit more. That's better, yeah. It's a little bit in and out.
We have more to do.
We got to get Brent a better microphone. We got more.
Anyway,
I'm just getting into it.
The short is there.
We need to get you a new video.
Maybe we can get her to sing on the show. That'd be cool too. We'll see.
That'd be fantastic.
But anyway, we got to punch out.
I think we can all agree. We need to get Brent a new microphone. It's on the desk. It's omnidirectional.
Yeah.
Definitely.
You need to go
exactly.
To these.
One of these.
Oh yeah.
I actually
start looking at microphones and put them up on your wish list.
Okay.
Yeah.
I actually I'm allowed to Passport, which is a Canadian program to use $3,000 worth of electronics. I think it is, out of the $5,000 Passport. And one of the things I put on my list was the Zoom H4N6 recorder with the bi-directional microphones,
Oh,
and I
yeah.
can actually connect up to 4 XL microphones into it, as well as a computer or a phone.
God.
I was
So
going to
it's
say
like
quickly.
Oh.
Yeah. I was going to
it's
say
one
something
hell of a recorder.
quickly before we have to go.
Yeah.
I was just looking on Kijiji for some stuff in like the Lower Mainland for my mom, and now my searches from Calgary were started showing up, and then I realized, oh, it's showing for your area, but I was seeing like blue Yetis for like $40-50.
That's
Oh,
good.
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get yourself a blue Yeti there, Brent, because they're good.
Yeah.
I got mine off Kijiji, but yeah.
Marketplace,
Facebook
for it.
Marketplace, yeah.
There's different models
Well,
for the blue Yeti.
the podcast bundle I picked to send the link to Passport actually comes with a Rode XL boom mic, which
The Rodes are nice
looks
too.
really big.
Yeah, well, there is
So-
a couple with the boom arms and everything that you can attach to any table, and like one even had a case for anyway, and it was like a blue Yeti, like both like the ones Neil and I have, and they were like $50-60. Like honestly, you should look into it. Yeah,
Blue Yeti. Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
On a
on
side
Facebook
note,
Marketplace, and yeah.
Well, I'm
on a
looking
side
forward
note,
to it because I can connect my
optometrists recommend glasses for all of us.
I can connect my camera
What did he
right
say?
into the
We're all wearing glasses, so
Yeah.
an optometrist is going to recommend glasses for all of us.
Hey, Neil, is your plate flooded yet?
No, mine.
Us-
I'm fine now, but there's a whole shitload of other people here that have like lots of water in here, so
Oh my gosh, I could just
I'm
imagine.
okay. Luckily,
You don't need an Oric or anything built, eh?
no, not yet. Not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
Yeah.
I can see it now.
So interesting story, real quick. 3 days before Christmas, 7 years ago, I was renting an apartment. I just moved in November 1st, and 2 days before Christmas, the pipe for the furnace of the hot water furnace that they had in our apartment building burst right underneath my living room floor, and I got evicted 2 days before Christmas.
Oh wow!
Oh.
Wow!
And because I didn't know the rental laws back then, I actually only got my first and last month's rent back, and I should have gotten 3 months rent, 4 months notice. I should have been given time. Instead, they threw me out within 2 days with 48 hours notice, and they only gave me my first and last month's rent back. That was it. And that happened to me 7 years ago. So just pipes burst affects homeowners just as much as regular people that rent. And imagine the people with disabilities when their pipes burst, how much benefits like this can help them to keep the longevity of their homes going for their kids.
Yeah, because they're scared about moving because they can't find anywhere else that's affordable. So they kind of just go with it, with what the landlord says. And yeah, it can get pretty messy for sure. That'll be another topic that we can dive into too.
Hey, I think we should let
Tune in next Monday for the reboot. Tune in next Monday for the reboot of the.
And hopefully I'll be here. It depends when I'm flying out. So
okay.
Yeah, and
Tom continued.
Hopefully Tom will be
I might
back.
be flying as you're on air, so I don't know yet.
Yeah, and that'll be on Monday. Oh well, yeah. Let me know what time that's going to be. Because hey, I might have to broadcast live.
Yeah.
Because that'll be on Monday.
Well, I'm looking forward to getting this Zoom H recorder.
That could be live on location at your place, Neil.
It could be.
Where
I'm late for work. Thank God I work from
Newton.
home.
Rootin' tootin' Newton.
Rootin'
That
tootin'
could
Newton.
work.
Screw it.
That
Just
could
do a
work.
Twitter space. Fuck it all.
That could work out, Cassandra. If you're coming out Monday, I could do a live. Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll figure something.
It depends what time. I don't know. None of
There'll
that.
be 3 of us sharing one Yeti.
Well,
I don't know how that'll work out.
and then we'll get Sonia to run the show. Put the headphones on, and we'll be able.
There you go. Yeah.
There it is.
Sonia's like, no, what are you doing?
Anyway, I do have to punch out, unfortunately.
Thanks everyone for tuning in today. This is great.
Yeah.
We'll see you on Thursday, January the 18th, 11 o'clock a.m., 2 o'clock p.m.
For
Eastern
Biff.
time for Biff Naked, and our next show
Day before my birthday, I'll be there.
Yes,
Yeah.
Bill
Be
and Dummies.
watching.
We might be live on location. Well, stay tuned.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Okay.
everyone.
Bye, everyone.